that thing that you're afraid to say might just be the very thing that someone else needs to make it through. Hi, my name's Steve Kidd. I am a third generation minister, international best-selling author of 39 books and counting. I've had the wonderful privilege of working with nearly 5,000 people, helping them write, publish, market their books to bestseller, and everything that goes beyond that. What I'm here to do today is to help you find clarity, to understand that visibility is what makes you valuable, and to help you then learn a few secrets on how you can be visible and valuable to the people that you're meant to serve in this world, up to and including, and don't forget this one, you, because you're important. And sometimes, often in fact, what I find is that the first person that we're really meant to help is ourselves. Often I've even encouraged people when helping them develop an avatar that their initial avatar is just a little younger version of themselves. They are, talking to who they were a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, a couple of years ago, before they learned the thing that they know now that they're teaching. And that can be a very powerful way to be able to define the first people we're talking to, because often what needs to happen more than anything else is our ears need to hear our voice saying the thing and saying it over and over again until it not only becomes a habit in our life, but it becomes something that we truly believe. According to the book Atomic Habits, and he did it off of research, so it wasn't his idea. He quotes the statistic that it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something, 10,000 hours of practicing it. I would add in what my buddy always said, and that is my buddy Kevin, by the way. Hi, Kevin, if you're listening. Kevin used to always say, it's not practice that makes perfect. It's practicing doing it right that makes perfect. And that's true. If you practice doing something the wrong way, all you're going to do is get really, really an expert at doing it wrong. And we were talking yesterday about the coaches. I got triggered a little bit about the coaches that come in and they're teaching you something that they know nothing about, and they're just regurgitating what somebody else said. And because that other person that they're regurgitating didn't really know what they were talking about either, becomes that snowball effect. Whereas if you really get to know you, clarity is powerful. Okay, that's why clarity is the first of the 3 C's. Clarity, consistency, connection. And clarity is up front, not because they really come in order like that, but because I usually say it in that order, because clarity is the thing that you need the help on. And clarity is the piece that without it. I was actually doing a feedback survey on the event that I was at last week. And I mentioned that to them in that they're like, if there was anything that you would suggest changing or that needed to be added in. And I was like, hey, with all the cool things, and there was a lot of really cool teaching, really actionable, overwhelmingly so. Like I'm now kind of sitting here going, oh man, I need like 10 me's to be able to do all the things that need to happen like this week, plus all the other things that I still need to get done. It's a tough place to be in, right? But the piece that is missing, and I say this all the time, especially, because, I've worked with a lot of authors. Same is true with people when they're defining their speech. There is a really good friend of mine that is an amazing performance coach, and she does a great job of helping you create your speech and really learn how to perform it, like be a really good stage performer. I have another friend of mine who, they do more of going into your human design and really pulling out what is the speech that you're meant to give. Okay. And although I like all those tests, and I've taken all of them between my father's master's degree in marriage and family counseling and my mother's, or rather in pastoral counseling, and my mother's degree in marriage and family counseling, I feel like a pincushion, having been the guinea pig on a lot of those kind of tests. And I like all of them, but I think I've seen, especially when, because I was doing them when I was a teen, and this is often the problem when teens and young adults take these tests, is they tend to want to answer the question based on how they either think that they should be answering them or who they wish they were, rather than learning how cool it is exactly who you are. And so we need that clarity piece. We need to really understand who we are so that we can say the thing out loud. Often, the reason why we're afraid to say that thing out loud is because we don't feel the confidence in it. Our ears haven't heard our mouth say it enough. That's part of it. But also, our brain doesn't know whether it really is totally connecting with that particular thing. Our brain is kind of going, it's not quite it. And I know this feeling. I don't want you to feel judged or less than, because even as I've gone through this, we're almost at like what 3-4 months that we've been doing these lives every single day. Even when I've been on the road, even at the doctor's, at the hospital when my mom had the procedure that she had, all those kind of times I try to come out to you. Even if it's just a minute, I want to be here with you. Okay, and I hear myself say things and go, that isn't quite it. My brain processes it. And I'm working on, like I'm suggesting to you guys, having it not just be the 20 to 50 minutes that I spend talking, depending on how rambunctious I get each day to you, but have it be that thing that carries on throughout the rest of the day, that I'm saying those kind of things, that my ears are hearing my mouth say the thing that I'm outlining to you here that I am and that I need to say, versus we come on and we're real powerful. We get on stage or we get on the live stream or we get on with a client and we're just really on it and we're just really doing the thing. And then the rest of the day, we're sitting in our office, and a lot of us work from home or in small offices, in other words, with limited direct human contact. That's one of the reasons why I love going to the events. I'm actually looking for an event. I really would like to find an October, November, and now December event to go to attend. Better yet, have me as a speaker. Absolutely. Let's work out getting me there to speak on your stage. I could even do the end of this month, but October, November, December. I'm claiming that. I'm putting that out there. And as you're listening, if you have something, absolutely, I am open and I'm interested, because one of the biggest things I learned last week is how important that human connection is. And honestly, just being really transparent with you, how uncomfortable and unpracticed at being around other humans I really am. I do live streams all the time and I do interviews, and I've got the radio show and blah, 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 blah. And you think it's like, that's a lot of people. And plus you now live with 2 people. So it's not even just like, the only person you ever talk to is your little dog, who I'm convinced my Yorkie does know English and she just doesn't want to speak it because she's too snooty. It's just, that's so beneath her, right? She gives you that look and you'll be like, yeah, she knows exactly what I'm saying. But we need that. And so that's one of the things that I'm putting out there. And the money that's going to need to come with it, because I need to make sure everything else is paid and then I can go and really enjoy it and be around the people, because that's important. And we need that. We need that human connection beyond all of the, my good friend Molly Mahoney, she's always saying, and the number one thing you need to do every day is talk to humans. Okay. Make offers and talk to humans. And part of it really just boils down to, you need to just talk to people. So part of that fear, part of what we're afraid to say out loud, is because we're not clear on it. We're not solid on it. Or even worse, when we say it, it doesn't totally resonate ourselves. It's kind of like, and some of you aren't musicians, so this will fall outside of your frame of reference. But when you're singing, there's different levels to singing. When you first start off, you very much need to hear your own voice, to hear if you're on pitch. And that's why very often when people are singing with headphones on, they're singing off key, because they can't really actually hear their own voice, especially if the music's up loud enough. So you feel like you're hitting the notes. That's why everybody is a rock star in the car, because you can just turn it up loud enough that, you sound exactly like John Bon Jovi. You must be, even though you're totally off, you know. And I'll be the first one to put myself in that category because I can't hit the notes that I used to. I can hit some of them better than I did a couple of years ago, and I'm working on that. And as I lose the weight, I'm noticing that my range is extending again, and that's kind of cool too. But you move then to the next stage where you can put on like one headphone or both, and you can feel the vibrations inside of the bones in your skull and in the inner ear. And that lets you know whether you're on or off pitch. And you can begin to tell it. So that then, when I was touring with Continentals with a group, we would be on risers and I would be bent over with two altos singing in my ear. And obviously I was a tenor, they're an alto, they're singing different notes than what I'm singing. And you need to know your stuff and be able to feel your own voice enough that you can sing on key for your stuff and you can harmonize with them versus either A, singing what they're singing, which is very easy to do, or B, go off key. And so those are still true when it comes to our speaking too. When we talk out into the world, we can feel that resonance. And it may not be exactly like the on pitch where, the vibration actually is dissonant inside of your ear canal, inside of the little bones that are in your ear. But it feels that way in your gut, in your head, in your heart, in your mind, and in the inner you're like, that wasn't quite it. You also know that when you're really on, like, oh, yes, I totally nailed that. And I've had a few of these lives where I'm like, man, that was really good. I've had a few of them where I've even asked Patricia or other ones that you've seen on here, what did you think? Because I'm not totally sure. Sometimes we can really feel that resonance and sometimes we can't. And sometimes we really feel how off we are. Absolutely. And we need to learn how to be able to listen to our inner voice, not the inner critic, not the one that's telling us everything we do, we're just awful at and it's horrible and blah, blah, blah. And, just no matter what we do, we're just never good enough in our own eyes. Not that one, but that intuition that's helping us hone. Ooh, yeah, the way you said that really is you. Versus I like the point you were making, but that wasn't exactly the way that you would say it. It's kind of like, perfect example, using current times, right? Is when you have ChatGPT or Claude or Gronk or any of the others, Grok, I'm sorry. Gronk, I think, is, Rob Gronkowski from, right? That's funny. And you have them write something for you and then you read it, that kind of, you get where you're like, Now, and that's where a lot of the problem comes in a lot of the social media that we're seeing now and different things. And even, because there's some cool things you can do to have AI write and then, actually speak out the words in your voice. Gronk is the name of the AI, or is it Grok? Somebody look that up for us. Pretty sure that's your new job. But there is definitely Rob Gronkowski too. So I don't even know. Whatever. I know definitely something right in there. There is an AI as well. And maybe Rob Gronkowski brought it out. Okay. But anyway, sorry, I totally hijacked myself. In seriousness, though, you need to listen to that resonance that you feel for it and have yourself. And when you're using the ChatGPT, an example, you need to read through it. We've got way too many people that are just letting it write it and then plopping it out there. And I don't. Now, Patricia's on with us now. It is Grok for real, but yeah, okay. Grok. Doesn't matter though, really. I mean, look up. I'm sure if you looked up Gronk AI and you put the N in there, I'm sure it would probably find it for you and be like, "Did you mean Grok?" Especially these days. But it's really important that we look at that thing that's written for us. There's so much stuff out there. And although I know it's one of Patricia's pet peeves, the in dash, the long dash versus the short one, um, that one doesn't bother me as much. But a lot of times you read people's posts and you're like, yeah, that wasn't them. I know this person and I know that that's not exactly them. And I mean, I've got a fairly well seasoned, you know, customized voice in ChatGPT for me, and I put, 30 plus books in it and hours of audio in it. And they say when it comes to cloning your voice that you should use about 3 hours of audio, all on the same microphone, when your voice is in the same range so that it can duplicate you. Like with me, you can still tell it's so much better, but I still do have just a little bit of that rasp that I had in my voice last week. And so that would throw it off a little bit if I put last week's, especially if I put in last week's lives into the mix and was telling it, okay, now clone my voice. There might be some weird growliness or hoarseness, can't talk. Uh, the dash can stay, but it needs spaces. Okay. um, you know, and it takes like 3 hours of that for the good programs, they're really, really well defined. And I'm talking about, everybody is doing. There was a dude in China or Japan rather that did a 7 hour live, a QVC style sales of products, 7 hours. Q&A, answered questions. People had called in. People thought he was live. It was actually totally an AI thing. So there's some cool things you can do like that, but you need that consistency for it to really truly understand that stuff. About 80% of what it can create is great, and you need to add in that last 20% of you. Now, how are you going to do that if you don't know who you are? If you're not clear on you, or if you're afraid of who you are, okay, there's ditches on both sides of that road. There's the people who are afraid to say the thing out loud because they don't really clearly know if that's really what they believe. And there's people that are afraid to say it out loud because they really, really know it, but they're afraid of the reaction that is going to come from it. And in both of those cases, my encouragement is the same. Number one, A, you need to really clearly know you. And then B, you need to speak it. You need to speak it because your ears need to hear it. You need the 10,000 hours just for you. Just you in front of a mic and a camera saying the thing to you. The audience of one, the audience of you. 10,000 hours of that. Okay? Somebody do the math, because I did the math the other day and I totally messed it up because I was trying to do math and continue being lively, articulate here in a live stream, and it totally blew the math. Okay? But 10,000 hours, if you did an hour a day, that would be 10,000 days. Okay, you could divide 10,000, 365, 10,000 by 365 and end up with a number. Okay, and that's why I'm encouraging you throughout the day, be continuing to say the thing. But first, you got to know who you are. Now, there's two elements to that. Part of it does come from just saying it. Again, going back to that resonance. You say the thing, how does it feel? Say something and then let it land. Stop for a second. It's 250 weeks if you do 40 hours a week. Okay. So if your full-time job is just you speaking to you, that's 5 years, just shy. 52 weeks in a year, 250, I rounded down, okay? 5 years of you just talking to you. That's why it's so important that every word comes out of your mouth is in alignment with who you are, where you're going, what you're doing. It's been an interesting year. A lot of stretching in faith. And I've had to learn over the course of this year, and I should say I am still trying to learn how to be able to let the things that are coming out of my mouth be consistent. Because if you want to, and wherever you fall on the spectrum of the secret, manifestation, divine providence, any of those kind of things that are all in that concept of, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Or as a man says in his heart, so is he. Okay, that your words and your insides, they're the sameness. And if 1 minute this thing's coming out of your mouth and the next minute this thing that's opposite of it's coming out of your mouth, at the very least you're confusing your own brain. And it also is a real good clear clue that you're not clear on who you are. So again, if we go back to that 250 weeks that Patricia thankfully did the math for us, if we go back to that 250 weeks and half the time we're saying this and the other half the time we're saying this, what did we perfect? We perfected being very confused. So 5 years from now, we end up in an extremely, really perfected confusion. We are an expert at being confused. You're going to think about that one later on this week, and you're going to be like, oh man, does that explain that course I took? Does that explain that speaker? Does that explain that person? Does that explain that pastor at that church? Oh, okay. I can call us out because what you focus on grows, what you practice. And if you're practicing having two minds, 1 minute you're upbeat and positive, the next minute you're a depressed loser, in your own words. I'm not talking about that you are. I'm talking about the things that you're saying about yourself. All you're becoming an expert at is being an expert at being confused about who you are, rather than understanding you are amazing, you are powerful, you're incredible, and your voice is needed. You need to speak it out loud. Now, yes, there is a part of clarity that's just going to come from that speaking. Again, goes back to that resonance that we feel inside of us. Okay, and though it may not vibrate this little bone that's right here, you can feel it right in front of your ears if you really, really want to feel them. Though the words that come out of your mouth that are not in line with the heart and soul and core of who you are won't impact that bone on that frequency level like it would if it was music. In your gut, in your here, you're going to feel it. It's going to feel just a little off. It's not going to quite register with you. If it's not registering with you, guess what? It's also not registering with the people that you want to serve. If you're confused, so will they be. Now, with all of that, I can hear you saying, but Steve, that's why I'm afraid to say the thing out loud, because I don't really totally know. Or, but Steve, I'm afraid to say that thing out loud because I really do know and believe it, but nobody really wants to hear it. And I'm saying pish posh to both of those. You see, once you get the car moving, you can turn it, even if you have to go a complete 180. I love it when people use 360 for meaning 180, because if you did a 360, all you would do is just spin around and go in the same direction. But if you need to do a complete 180 from where you're going, if you're moving, you can do that. It's very hard to spin the car. I mean, you have to even take it out of drive and roll it up onto little carpets or little plasticky things. That's what they do at car dealerships. You know how they have those cars in the showroom? They actually have little pads that they put the car on. And then it's really easy to push. Okay. But you have to put it in neutral to get it up onto all four tires onto that. And all four tires have to be on that, because if one of them isn't, it doesn't slide at all. Not when it's in park. And then you got to take it off of the pads, because if you don't, then when it's in park, somebody leans up against it in the showroom and it goes, and it crashes into something, and then, you've got a broken car. Same thing's true in our life. We've got to get that movement going. We've got to get ourselves up onto the pad or Better yet, just drive down the road. Say the thing. Even if you're not totally clear, and that's going to move you in the direction of clarity. And then you need to get help from somebody who's outside of the jar that you're in. That's why I love that phrase, you can't read the label of the jar that you're inside of. We all need people outside of us, even people that are just like, hey, man, you are totally wacko off on what you were talking about today. Okay, I can accept that. You could send me a message right now and say, dude, you are so off. I appreciate the feedback. One of the things I appreciated the most about the survey that I was talking about that I filled out was the last question was, give us feedback on any things that we could change. And please be brutally honest. We really appreciate your input. And I did. I gave them the honest critique, because the only one thing that they did really off was they weren't really good at saying we're going to start at X and then starting at that time. And so I told them. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate you. If you want to give me feedback, absolutely. Now people that are coming in and they're just trashing you, because we're going back to that fear again, those aren't your people. You can just dust them off. Thank goodness that they've identified themselves as not one of my audiences. It's like the post that you did this week, Patricia, where you were talking about all the, about the, whatever it was, I think 7 people that, that unfriended you or, dropped off of your list. What a bonus that is. What a lack of energy drain that is, that you now have. You don't have to worry about those people because they've self-identified themselves as not being your people. And the people that are just coming in to trash you, to be mean, to say harsh things, not constructive criticism. That's a really great way of saying that word. Constructive criticism. But, they just want to be haters. Thank goodness when they're gone. Be glad that they've identified themselves, even in their hating, as not being somebody that you need to worry and mess your time with. Because, and this is why we have to step over the fear and say the thing. Because number one, you need to hear it. You need to hear it and get clear. And number two, there is definitely somebody who needs exactly what you're going to say. And you can say it out on a live stream like this. You can pick up your phone like I've encouraged you to do many times and say, hi, I'd just like to talk to you today for a minute about. You can do the more formal version. Hi, my name is. What I do is, and what I'd like to talk to you about today is. But it's mainly just a matter of picking up the phone and just going for it. And the nature, and this is what I love about social media. There's a bunch of things I could tell you that are, not so great. But one of the things I love about social media is that stuff stays there. Now I know Facebook has changed it now so that, your videos are only sticking around for 30 days because their data center usage got to the point where they're like, whoa, wait a minute, man, all this video, we got to limit that. Put it on YouTube too. Let it stay there. It might be somebody 5 years from now that'll hear the thing and be like, oh my gosh, that was absolutely exactly what I needed to say. I remember back in the day, this was the early days of the internet. We had these little paper dolls. They were on-screen paper dolls. Are you guys familiar with what paper dolls are? Paper dolls back in the day, you would have basically a figure that was a piece of paper, okay? That was a girl or a boy. And then their outfits, and they just had little tabs that would fold over the shoulders, and kids could play with them. And it's like the early broke version of Barbies, where you couldn't afford Barbies and you couldn't afford Barbie clothes. You could make the little characters out of the paper dolls. And we had these on one of the websites that we had online. We had the online version of them, and you could take and slide the cute little dress onto the little girl or whatever. It wasn't something we were promoting. It was just a fun thing that we had on one of the websites that we had created. It blew up. It had like several million, I want to say, don't quote me on this, it was like 5 or 10 million hits on that page. It was just kids coming, moms. We'd shared it in a couple of moms groups, and they were like, here, there's something for your kids to do. And it was early, rudimentary. I mean, like these days, the things that the kids have available on their personal cell phones, they'd be like pish posh, but it was cool for them then. And your message that you feel like nobody is listening to may be exactly that same thing. You won't even think about it. You go back to YouTube 3 years from now and you'll be like, holy cow, when did I get 10,000 subscribers? Because you said something that resonated, or you said something that then was just something on your heart, but then some current event happens, and poof, all of a sudden it is like mainstream. Everybody in the whole world is talking about it. And you look like this really brilliant visionary because you were talking about it like 2 years ago. And maybe you are a really brilliant visionary. How about that? Share your experiences. They give people hope, clarity, courage. What you have to say today is exactly the thing that somebody, including you, is missing. And that's important. It really is. I do hope you'll come to visibilityamplifier.com and you'll join us. We would love to hear and see you share your message to make the difference in this world that only you can make. And we would love to work with you and help you really get truly clear on who you are so that you can write that book, you can do that speech, you can do that talk, you can have that course, and it'll be clearly and right on point with exactly who you are and what you need to be doing in this world. And I hope you will. Thanks so much for being with me here today. Tomorrow, we're going to get together again and we're going to talk about imperfect, messy, and magnetic. I'm looking forward to it. Hope you are too. And until we're together again next time, I hope you have a great week.